placed 25,000 students into private senior high schools through the Computerized School Placement System, the CSPS. However, unlike public senior high schools, government will not cover tuition fees. Instead, it will provide an annual stipend of 994 cedis, which is 994 cedis per student. The Minister of Education, Haruna Idrisu, announced this during the signing of a memorandum of understanding with leaders of private senior high schools in Accra. Through this arrangement, 25,000 students have been placed in 70 private senior high schools across the country. The initiative, according to the minister, is part of government's broader effort to eliminate the double-track system and create more space for students with private schools providing additional classroom capacity. Let's listen to the Minister of Education.
As candidate, is keeping in honor as president having been elected, rooted in the fact that he had an understanding that the implementation of the free senior high school initiative was bedeviled with many problems that affected the quality delivery of quality free senior high school education. The previous administration, in its quest to expand access to free senior high school, even redefined free compulsory universal basic education to include free senior high school. So in Ghana today, the Constitution guarantees equal educational opportunities for all Ghanaians. I emphasize it. The Constitution of 1992, those of you who want me to be specific, between Article 34 to 38, I'm sure Article 34 of the Constitution emphasizes equal educational opportunities for all Ghanaians. Its meaning and its impact is that every Ghanaian is entitled to the full benefit of the rights and freedoms guaranteed under the Constitution, subject to the state ability to provide it. Now, if you see a significant number of Ghanaian students unable to join public schools, by necessity, they find comfort in private schools. They are still Ghanaians.
Right, so that's Haruna Idrisu, who is the Minister in charge of Education, giving us a reasoning behind why government has now decided to work closely also with private schools. Let's now speak to the Executive Director of the Ghana National Council of Private Schools. And the gentleman has joined us on phone for a quick chat. Obengfo Nana Kwesi Jetia. Nana, good evening and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, and good evening to all your cherished listeners this evening.
Right. Several years ago, or a few years ago, we know that your association kept reiterating that you had capacity to take on students and wanted to be placed on the government intervention when it comes to secondary education in the country. Finally, there seemed to be that understanding and collaboration where private schools have now been added to government school placement program. How does this make you feel? And for the fact that, at least for the first time, 25,000 students have been sent to private senior high schools.
All right. Thank you very much. You know very well in your prelude, as you have already alluded to, that the private education in Ghana is an epitome of quality education delivery in Ghanaian education system. And so therefore, when the free senior high school policy started, we argued strongly that it is very necessary and logically right to include the private schools into the participation. the previous administration, in terms of the Ministry of Education, did not reason with us as to how it would be very possible to do so, even though we presented many proposals to them. Though when this government was formed, it was also very prudent for us to engage them to see how best these initiatives, which we have championed for a very long time, be considered. And I'm glad to say that today we have witnessed the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the Ministry of Education and the Ghana National Council of Private Schools for the implementation of the free senior high school program in selected private schools as a pilot project. And so we will use this opportunity to actually appreciate the ruling government, the Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the President of Ghana, the Minister for Education, and all the heads of agencies who supported this initiative to come to fruition. So we are much grateful, and we believe that this is a great milestone that is going to actually be a foundation upon which private-public partnership is going to be anchored in terms of education delivery. It is actually going to also be a leverage point to even engage development partners to see the work of private education as a decoy in education delivery at the pre-tertiary education level. So we are much grateful, and we are very happy that this collaboration has actually been kick-started.
And it is interesting that you mentioned that after several negotiations and meetings, at least now it has taken off on a pilot basis. We are told that government, as part of the agreement, is going to be paying 994 Ghana cedis per student, which is to cover full tuition. Is that it? What exactly is this amount expected to do, and would that be enough? Would it be adequate considering that you are a private institution?
All right. So if you look at the entirety of the MOU signed today, there are aspects upon which they give the responsibility or confer some duties upon the ministry, and there's also an aspect of the way the NACOPs that we have to also bear as our responsibility. And if I will quick to walk you through some of these issues to help us answer the question you just posed, we just have to understand that the Ministry of Education will be actually responsible for the sponsorship or providing one hot meal to all the students that have been placed in the private schools. And it's also important to clarify that our understanding that we have had with the ministry is that the students that are going to be placed in our schools are going to be day students. They are not going to be residential, so they are non-residential students. And for that matter, government is going to provide one hot meal, textbooks, uniform, school clothes, supplementary readers, and any other approved educational materials by the Ghana Education Service under the free SHS program. And so if you are looking at the cost, it is not only the cost of the 994 Ghana cedis as allocated for a student for the year. We need to also understand that in terms of technical support like training, these 70 schools will benefit from any government training that the GES or the Ministry of Education will be providing for the implementation of the free senior high school program. Now, let's look at the issue of tuition. The agreement that we have is that government is going to provide 994 Ghana cedis per person within an academic year which is 2 semesters. And that is an excluded from any tuition. And in our education balance, when we talk of tuition, we are more referring to the money that we use to pay the teachers. And so if you look at this, when there is a precedent, the precedent is that government had already had partnership with the private hospitals in terms of implementation of the National Health Insurance Scheme. It is not the duty of the government to be paying your employee, because the moment the payment is coming from elsewhere, what it constitutes is that the legal relationship that exists as employer and the employee then is being taken away from you, and it reduces even your corporate entity as someone who owns a corporate entity. And so our argument that we have with the government is that we will provide for our teachers. Government is going to provide 994 Ghana cedis for that. Right. Aside that, there is a recurring cost of 250 Ghana cedis that government is also going to provide based on budgetary allocation that will be given to the free SHS policy. Okay. And so when you put all these together, it's kind of coming up or summing up to a point where it reduces the kind of burden. Okay. And we need to also understand that this is a pilot project. And so there are so many lessons that we are going to learn from it. And our memorandum of understanding spans for 3 academic years, within which there are durations that we could review some of these nuances that may come out to see the best way forward.
Okay. Obinfo, thank you. It's very early days for this interesting initiative, which I'm sure many of you are supporting just in a bit to encourage a number of our young people to go and get secondary education. We'll see how it plays out in the coming days. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
You are welcome. Thank you very much.
Right. Obinfo Nanakwesi JTI is the Executive Director of the Ghana National Council of Private Schools. And the news is that they have signed a memorandum of understanding between them and the Ministry of Education, where 25,000 pupils have been placed through the Computerized School Placement System into private schools. So we know that the larger number that goes into public schools is in excess of over 60 to 80,000, but 25%, a good percentage of that, 25,000 I should say, are into private schools. And in the coming days we'll give you further breakdown of what all of this means. This is still Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Let's go on to some other issues, and this particular issue should be of concern to you because we're going to be talking about food. So if you do eat, you want to listen to this. October 16, which is today, is the day set aside to mark Food Day, a global celebration to raise awareness about hunger, malnutrition, and the importance of food security. This year's food celebration was under the theme Working Hand in Hand for a Better Food for a Better Future. Nearly 500,000 of Ghana's population, about 15.1 million people, experienced some level of food insecurity. That's according to the Ghana Statistical Service. According to the reports, the northern region recorded the highest rate of food insecurity, where the eastern region recorded the lowest, and 35 to 50% of average households' budget, particularly among low-income families, focuses or is spent just on food. And in studio with me is my colleague from the research desk here at Media General, Wisdom Safo, to walk us through what the key issues are and what the numbers are saying. Wisdom, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Okay, Martin.
Right, to start with, what are the numbers saying? Talk to us about the specifics in terms of whether we even have enough and which areas we need to improve upon.
Okay, very well, Martin. Martin, today have you done 111? That's the boys in the WhatsApp group, the code. So normally, if you talk about food security, it is a matter of great concern, because you know what? There's a saying that a hungry person is an angry person. Before you could do anything in this life, you have to actually first eat before you do anything at all. So according to the Ghana Statistical Service, as you rightly mentioned, the food insecurity situation, about 15.1 million Ghanaians are facing some form of food insecurity. That's like half of the entire country. But if you narrow it down to the regions, as you rightly mentioned, you're talking about 48.7% for Upper East region. They are on the top of the list when it comes to the most food insecure region, followed by the Northeast.
Okay, so it means that for those following us, it means that the Upper East region, which you mentioned, is the region that struggles the most when it comes to food availability.
Right. And actually, when you're talking about food insecurity, we normally focus on the quantity, whether the food is available. We don't focus on the quality. The quality is also very important, because look, if you are eating more of starchy foods, no vitamins, no protein and all that, it's also joins in when we're talking about food insecurity. But at the back of followed by after Upper East, we have the Northeast region, then we have the Northern region, the Upper West and Savannah region. If you look at all these regions, they are on the Northern Belt. And this brings the question, why is it that we are looking at food insecurity and we are just pinpointing the northern sectors, the regions in the northern sector? And it boils down to one major challenge. It's about their weather, it's about whether we have plans for irrigation, and it's about multi-dimensional poverty. Okay. So you realize that for you to use money to buy food, right? Even for you to eat quality food, you have to spend a lot on it. So you realize that there is a prevalence of poverty in these areas. Hence, multi-dimensional poverty, and finally food insecurity. So if you look at the national average, as you rightly mentioned earlier, that the eastern region happens to be the lowest, and I find it quite interesting. You know, these are agro-based places where we normally farm. We do a lot of large-scale mechanized farming and all that. So it's very natural to have a low food insecurity in the eastern region. So Martin, if you're talking about food insecurity, this is just a snapshot of how it looks when it comes to Ghana. Okay.
Coincidentally, when you're talking about food, its availability or otherwise, another key issue we look at is a population, where the density of the population. So we know, based on information and data, that the Greater Accra region has the most population in terms of Ghanaians. Then we go to the Ashanti, then Western, etc. When you're looking at the distribution, would you say the Greater Accra region, for instance, has enough considering the population we have?
Yeah, so it's very interesting looking at the data. You realize that these people from the rural areas of the rural regions, they actually produce a lot of these foods. And instead of them eating it or keeping it, they rather bring it to Accra, sell it to the traders, and they rather eat the more nourished,
the leftovers.
So Accra actually has a lot of food, and it is not even on the top 5 list of food, the most food insecure regions. So we have enough food in Accra. You just have to have the money to buy them, Martin.
Okay, right. Thank you for that quick snapshot of what we should be thinking about as a nation. And also, when you talk to a number of people, the key interest is that, or what normally they would say is that the food basket of the country is in the northern part. So if it is the food basket, indirectly saying that's where we grow most of our foods, how come when you look at availability of food, they are also the ones
they will rather go in for the money?
Yes, they will prefer selling and getting the money rather than all right. So, I mean, it paints a very interesting picture of how all of this is playing out, but certainly in the coming days we'll try and delve deeper into it. Thank you very much, Wisdom Safo.
Welcome.
He's with our research desk here at Media General. And I mean, if you've been listening, what do you make of it? Have you had something to eat today? And what do you make about the fact that about half of the Ghanaian population do not have food to eat, or are unable to get quality food to eat? do send it to us in the message section on our Facebook page and on our YouTube page as well, and we'll share it with the rest of the world. Talking about food and things we consume, we are going to the Western region now because the Western Regional Poultry Farmers Association has called on government to consider the risk of inexperience and bird mortality in the implementation of its Nkukon Kitten policy. While expressing its wholehearted support for the policy's objectives, the association has expressed concern about distributing broilers to non-poultry farmers or inexperienced groups, which carries a high risk of failure. And in the moment to speak to, all right, so there's this report put together by Irama Smith, who is in the Western region. Right, Irama, thank you for joining us. To start with, what exactly are some of the solutions that are being proffered when it comes to ensuring that the right people are giving these Nkukon Nkitten policy that the government is implementing?
Right, so they are urging government to implement a hands-on training program for all beneficiaries, and they are willing to participate in this so that those who are going to benefit will have the practical know-how. It should be mandatory, should have the practical know-how before they start this process. They are also urging government to also implement a buyback policy whereby when they are ready for the market, government will buy them back and perhaps put them onto the market at subsidized rates or however governments want to go by it. This, they are also calling for these to be bought by government and then fed to our schools, that's the second cycle institutions, to ensure that there is always a ready market for these for this produce. You may listen to the chairman.
We urge the government to mandate comprehensive handout training for all beneficiaries receiving the free birds before distribution in the future. We are willing to collaborate in developing and delivering this essential training for future programs. We propose the establishment of a strict government-supported veterinary and biosecurity monitoring framework for all beneficiaries in partnership with existing farm associations.
And that report was brought to us by Irama Smith in the Western region. That's it for the major part of the bulletin. Time now for business, and Bismarck Ewusa is with us and he'll take it over.